Alright folks, it is that time yet again for a investigation part here, to bring up new theories and ideas that I came up with after episode 6, like think on past events and say my thoughts in regards to episode 6, like what I loved and such. So let's just jump into it right away. So first things first, Shannon, Kanon, and Beatrice. So the duel that happened in game 6 does lead towards my ideas I had for previous games, in regards to all three of these lovely people being part of one package. Initially, it was Shannon and Beatrice being one. Afterwards, I questioned if Kanon and Beatrice would be one and the same, and afterwards, I was initially mixed in regards to Shannon and Kanon being part of the same package, but now we are here, and we're all going all, fuck it, just squeeze all of them in the same box. And sure enough, with the duel in episode 6, they do fit inside the box. Kind of like a cat inside a bowl. Fluidity. I may have talked about this in previous games, in regards to the whole switching of personas and all, whether these three are aware of the switching and such, but okay, the duel tells me that, alright, we may have a huge case of identity questioning. That the person holding all these personalities is questioning their future, like what direction they would head in, and with who. To be Shannon and go with George? To be Kanon and go with Jessica? Or to be Beatrice and go with Bella? In the end, Shannon has won the duel at that point. And I feel like what happened here between Shannon and Kanon may have been the real outcome of what happened in the tragic incident of Rokkenjima explosion. Which, by the way, apparently the tips after episode 6 confirmed it, I guess? I mean, it is definitely something that adds to my previous theories in regards to what happened on the island and such after everyone died. So we all see the little flashback after the duel of Battler being all, "Nah, I like them blonde with big badonkas. Get out of here, Flatwall." The reality is that Battler, he came back too late. Shannon chose George, and everyone died afterwards so that they would reach the Golden Land. Beatrice and Kanon, they lost the duel. However, what would the ending of episode 6, with Erika's defeat and Battler and Battle back together, this very well could be the outcome that Beatrice wished would have happened if Battler came back to her earlier, and Battler, the game master, he realized that this is what Battle wanted. So he wrote episode 6 like this, to showcase the real outcome of Shannon being the winner, which leads to the tragedy, and Beatrice being the winner, which would have happened if Battler did not break his promise. So, okay, that is what I will be going with from now on. In regards to when this whole switching personalities thing started, I think my answer for this would be after Battler left. The original person, the first person was Shannon, who lived her childhood up to 6 years ago as, herself, as Shannon, who suffered because of Kinzo before Battler's sin 6 years ago. Shannon, she existed even back then, cause, well, Battler remembers Shannon from back then, and even George does. And Shannon did say that she served since she was 6. Like, Jessica would have rebutted if that was not the case. Which, by the way, for a good while, I had been debating whether Jessica was part of a conspiracy together with Shannon and Kanon, or if she never knew anything about Shannon's deal in the first place. I feel like I questioned this a few times in the previous games. What with the whole us questioning Kanon's age back at the beginning of episode 1, when she was all, he is 16, right? But with some of the stuff that I've been thinking about, maybe Kanon is actually 19, which will lead to the whole stuff that I've talked about before. So I was questioning that. And even after episode 6, I questioned this, but nah, I'm gonna go with Jessica being in the complete dark in regards to all of this. I mean, Episode 6 did show Jessica being quite in the dark in regards to the duel, so if she knew, then she would have acted differently in my eyes. Hell, if she knew, she would have acted in the same way George acted. Like, he didn't question things. All he cared about was to win this. Which, now it suddenly pops in my head. Is George part of the conspiracy? Nah, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Maybe some other time. So the idea is that Shannon was first. Then the whole thing with Bella's promise happened 6 years ago. And thus, Shannon decided to change herself to Bella's preferences. Become the queen of waifus. So praise our blonde goddess battle. And that battle was baby battle. But then Bella has left the family and is not coming back anytime soon. With time, she became distressed, sad. This hurt her more and more as time went on, equivalent to 1,000 years of suffering. And eventually, she tried leaving Bella behind by not only going back to Shannon and pursue George, but also give birth to Kanon because of her interest in Jessica. And to top it all off, the birth of Elder Beato, a more rigid, tragic person that embodies the mysterious witch of the island persona instead of the beautiful woman that Bella wanted in the form of baby Beato. That's like 4 personalities there. Jesus Christ. But another question popped up. Why did Shannon go with the name of Sayo? Why did she have 2 names? Why did Kanon have 2 names too? One being Yoshia. Like, why didn't they stick with Sayo and Yoshia if these are their true names? In the end, we're still going with the idea that Fukuin Orphanage is real. And the names Shannon and Kanon came from there because, well, they are considered orphans. They had new names given to them. It's not like they had the opportunity to tell everyone, yeah, I am Sayo, because Natsuhi and the family will be all, no. The documents say that you are Shannon. The hell are you smoking? In the end, it very well can be that Shannon learned her true name of Sayo much later while serving the family. The name her mother must have given her, and Kanon's other name, Yoshia, is just a fabrication. Sayo could very well have learned her true name from Kumasawa or Genji, if we are to think that the mother that died with the baby 19 years ago was Sayo's mother. I made theories before that Shannon/Sayo could be Kuwadori and Beatrice's daughter from 19 years ago. And when I thought of this, it just came to me. Kuwadori and Beatrice's falling off the cliff in episode 3 could very well be the same as the servant who fell with the baby in episode 5. Both falls telling the same event but different illusions each time, done by Rosa in episode 3 and Natsuhi in episode 5. It could be thematic that the servant that Natsuhi pushed 19 years ago was Kuwadori and Beatrice, and well, when you look at that, Beatrice in present day would be haunting Natsuhi's nightmares because of it. Not to mention that the fall in episode 3 happened in 1967, according to Ronoe's Rare Truth, 19 years ago. So yeah, the fall in episode 3 was revisited in episode 5 under a different coat of paint. Yeah, that surely, like, I swear I don't remember making that connection before. Like, this very well could be the first time that I made that connection. In which case, wow. But, you know, going back to the whole them having 2 names, like with Shannon and Sayo and Kanon and Yoshia, it kind of makes me feel like there's more to it than that. Like, there's also like a narrative reasoning for this happening in the first place. That's like, it has a lot more oomph than what we had before, but I guess we shall see. Afterwards, another thing dawned on me after so long with these ideas. I kept talking about Shannon being Kuwadori and Beatrice's and Kinzo's daughter. But if Bella, George, and Jessica are Kinzo's grandkids, Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Incest. It is bad. Don't do it, kids. Don't be like Game of Thrones. I mean, you all know how that ended. So yeah, Shannon being in love with any of them, that sure is sinful as fuck. Apparently that never crossed my mind either. Yeah, up until this point. This could be yet another interpretation of why furniture can love. This could be the thing that has been weighing on her heart all this time. I also kind of wondered into the whole gender identity kind of topic. I mean, does Shannon have a vajayjay or a peepee? In which case, if Jessica were to figure out that Kanon had no peepee, then that would be a shock to Jessica. Or vice versa. If George were to find out that Shannon did have a peepee, that would be shocking to him as well. The whole thing with gender identity was probably a frowned upon topic in Japan back then, more than likely. Like, who knows? Either you are a guy with PP or a girl with vajayjay, like no in between. That might have been a mentality back then, which would have made Shannon's questioning of her identity like much worse than it already is. Another topic was the Golden Truths. Now, as I have said at the end of episode 5, the Golden Truth, similarly to the Golden Land, it is something created and/or believed by a lot of people, whether that truth is real, aka red truth, or not. If a golden truth can also be said in red, then it is definitely more powerful than the red. So red truths are absolutes no matter what, whereas golden truths, we make them absolutes ourselves, despite what others may think otherwise. There is one new gold truth in episode 6 that showed up, back in season 6 episode 12, the magic of a different interpretation. You use magic to create a golden flower petal inside a overturned cup. It was a splendid bit of magic. It stands that this is a truth that both battles believe in, but sadly, this is that other option where this would be weaker than a rare truth counterpart. This cannot be considered a rare truth because it can be explained in similar fashion to how Erika would explain it. Whereas on the flip side, with Balor's first golden truth back in episode 5, in regards to Kinzo, that could very well have been said in red as well. So therefore, his golden truth is a lot more powerful than a red truth counterpart. One different note I want to add here, so that I may think of later in this whole thing, is the little comment Federer made in season 6 episode 12. Maybe love and marriage are two separate things. And thus, there is something else I just remembered that became a tiny bit of a roadblock here. Genji. Like, Genji called himself a furniture as well. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Up until this point, in my eyes, the term furniture really felt more and more personal to Shannon and Kanon. With what we discussed before, the whole thing with being a furniture would definitely be a problem to Shannon and Kanon. But what about Genji? And it also makes me question even right now if Kumasawa ever could consider herself furniture. Like, honestly, I don't even remember. Like, I would have to go back through the episodes in order to do that. So, but right now, I don't remember. Should we also consider the idea that Genji wants to make love with Kinzo? And that will be considered incest, because they may be brothers? Alright. Let's reel this back here. In the end, I think that originally, the term furniture, it originated from Genji with a more realistic definition of it. Like Genji considering himself a wooden human with no other purpose than just to sit and serve his master. But when Kinzo started calling Shannon/Kanon furniture, they took it even further with its definition and possibly a more dark interpretation, what with Shannon possibly learning that she is his daughter. Genji, he has his realistic interpretation of being a furniture, and Shannon has her more magical interpretation of being a furniture, something much darker and more interpretive than Genji's usual interpretation of being a furniture and such. Alright, so another topic, the Golden Land. Could it be that the Golden Land is based on some form of real, well, okay, quote-unquote real place, or like based on some culture? Then I remember that whole thing with the Land of the Dead that happened in episode 3 and was described briefly. And Shannon was at its center too, so only recently did it make me think, maybe I should give that some more thought. Yeah, in retrospect, I feel like this kind of topic of the Land of the Dead should have been something I should have thought of a while ago, but only now I'm looking at it a little bit more. I mean, again, the Land of the Dead is such a unique thing that happened in episode 3. It was never touched upon again in the future. Like Land of the Dead, souls, nada. Like, I do remember I was like the one person who discussed the topic of souls, like sometime after episode 3, when defining what a person or human is, so that I can try and solve the red web problem, if you guys remember. Maybe the Land of the Dead is a more, quote-unquote, realistic interpretation of the Golden Land? I mean, the concept of the Land of the Dead is something known to a lot more people than the Golden Land is. So, I got another idea here. With how Shannon cannot love the cousins because of where she comes from, what we discussed before in this investigation, and how sinful it is. If there would be one reason why Shannon kills everyone, like even herself, it would be because in the Land of the Dead, or the Golden Land, human rules don't apply. She can love the cousins, no problem there. Like, they're all souls there. A body like hers that comes from Kinzo would be left behind, so that means that the sins left by that body would no longer exist in the Golden Land. Like, the Golden Land is a land free of sins. Like heaven, basically. Also, the whole thing with the term sin being used so much by Battle to describe Balor's broken promise may also come from this sin of Shannon's that she cannot get rid of unless she kills herself and the family. Okay, so on a different note, here's yet another thing that never crossed my mind in regards to Shannon's origins. If Shannon is Kuwadorian Beatrice's and Kinzo's daughter, and loving the cousins would be incest, and since Kinzo also has like daughters and sons, such as Rudolph, Kraus, Rosa and Eva, that means that Shannon is also their sister. She is the 5th sibling! Ugh, I swear. Like, one day, we are gonna discover that Balor is secretly Rosa's lover and Maria's father. Like, I mentioned that idea once in the past. Like, we are getting closer. Like, the family is getting more and more weird. Alright. Here's to another topic. Like, this topic right over here, it is definitely a huge one. It is definitely something that can be discussed for a really long time, which would be Shannon and Beatrice's looks. Yep, their looks. So I think that everyone at the very least heard of the concept of nature versus nurture. When it comes to a person's personality, I'm going with nurture all the way. However, when it comes to physical appearances, for example, well, to make things easier for us, hair color, it comes from parents. Shannon / Sayo and Kuwadorian Beatrice, like Sayo's mother, they surely do not share hair color. I mean, one can go with the idea that Kinzo, in his younger days, he had blonde hair, which would fix our problem here easily. Or another idea would be that Sayo is wearing a wig to hide the fact that her true color is blonde. similarly to Kuwadori and Beatrice. Same goes with Kanon. Or they change their blonde natural color to black or brunette, and they are hiding the long hair. Why do you think Shannon and Kanon wear those hats all the time in the first place? I mean, one exception would be Organization 13 Kanon without a hat. So I guess that kind of throws the theory out the window. But okay, let's just leave all that aside and go for something more spicy. What if Kuwadori and Beatrice never looked like this to begin with? That it isn't Shannon/Sayo who should be looking like Beatrice, but rather Beatrice, Kuwadori and Beatrice, who should have looked like her. Shannon may have never known how her mother looked like. It very well can be that after Balor's description of the most perfect woman in the universe, not only did she dress up as the battle we know, like purely original look, but she made Kuwadori and Beatrice's look, like her mother's look, in the magical interpretations we've seen before, like in episode 3. Shannon created her look to fill the gap. The portrait was done fairly recent too. It wasn't until recently that not only did everyone start associating the Legend of the Witch with that look, but also associate that look with her mother in the reader's eyes. It is the same mentality that Erika had when she was talking to Kumasawa in Season 6, Episode 10. Maybe the story wants us to work with this kind of mentality a little further. Then there's the portrait. The portrait was put recently. Like, it is stated by Jessica as early as Season 1, Episode 6. So, by that logic, it was never drawn by Kinzo, but Shannon, since it is purely her own look that she created because of Balor's description 6 years ago. So, Kinzo never had anything to do with that portrait. But if the real Kuwadori and Beatrice never looked like that, and this is just Shannon's fabrication, wouldn't Kinzo be raising an eyebrow when he looked at this portrait and asked, "Who the hell is this woman?" Not to mention all those times of Kinzo groveling over Beatrice, especially in front of her portrait. But remember, during the family conference, he is dead. Second, it can be that the portrait appeared after Kinzo's death, years before 1986. Jessica says that the portrait was put on display sometime around the year before last. Genji says that it was put here in April 1984. I'm not gonna start denying that Kinzo never had someone he loved, like Beatrice. I'm just saying that Kuwadori and Beatrice, the one who Kinzo fell in love with years ago, may have looked similarly to Shannon more, or at the very least, someone with the physique of Shannon, maybe. Shannon, in these 6 years, she overwrote the looks of her mother, which she never seen with her eyes. She overrode it with this Beatrice that we all know by now. However, I won't lie that there can be some mental gymnastics that can be needed here. I mean, I already been doing here for a little bit, but here's to some more mental gymnastics. Like here. She says that he says he had that painting made, which means, uh-oh, Jessica conspiracy inbound! Or maybe it is just that Jessica heard from her mother that Kinzo said this. Therefore, Jessica is now saying that Kinzo said this, even though Jessica never physically heard Kinzo say this stuff in the first place. Same goes for George, like maybe he heard her mother Eva say this, instead of hearing it from Kinzo himself. Again, mental gymnastics here. But then there's Natsuhi, and also Kraus for that matter, because they know that Kinzo died. So if the portrait came after Kinzo's death, they would be asking, what the hell is this portrait? So if the portrait came before Kinzo's death, Kinzo would be questioning the portrait. And if it's after his death, Natsuhi and Kraus would. I feel like there would be two ways out of this. 1. The portrait came around the time Kinzo died, when he didn't get the time to question what that portrait is. But at the same time, after his death, Natsuhi and Kraus would think that Kinzo must have ordered it, but they didn't get to question Kinzo about it in time because he had just died. So I guess they just left the portrait there, thinking that it must have been his mistress from years ago. And thus, they never found out that it was actually Shannon who ordered this here. But I guess with this implication, that would mean that Kinzo had to die at that point in order for this to work out. Which would mean that either it is like a cosmic coincidence or someone had to murder him. Which leads to the possibility that Shannon killed Kinzo, just so that the portrait would be put like a little bit afterwards, to not raise too many suspicions from Natsuhi and Kraus, I guess. It's a little bit far-fetched, but it is a possibility. Then there's the second way out of this. Number 2. Natsuhi, Kraus, and the servants, they worked together with Shannon, and did as she said and put the portrait there. At first I questioned why the hell would Natsuhi work with her, until I thought of it further. If Natsuhi, Kraus, and the servants learned of where Shannon came from, that she is Kinzo's daughter, then who knows, maybe the dynamic would actually change a little bit here. Maybe in secrecy, Shannon/Sayo would become the new master after Kinzo died, and thus they let Shannon put that portrait and epitaph there, and thus it would add more credibility to the idea that during the family conference, when the adults were in the dining hall late at night discussing, like, you know, in episode 4 or episode 2, they were talking to Shannon as the new master, not Kinzo. Not only would they be threatened by the possibility of the island exploding, but they would learn of Shannon's origin as Kinzo's daughter. Alright. Well, that was surely a long one. Alright, well, time for my thoughts for episode 6. The good old question. Did I like this episode more than the first 5? Are you kidding me? Are we going for another step up, where each episode got better and better? Well, I guess there is the topic of comparing episode 6 with the question arc episodes overall, which I'm not gonna do that right now, but like maybe some other time. But can I say with certainty that I like episode 6 more than 5? Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the overall focus of episode 6, of Shannon, Kanon, Dato, and Erika, it was my personal favorite, in comparison to the focus of episode 5, which was Natsuhi. The duel, which, based on the ideas I accumulated thus far, like representing the identity questioning of the person holding the personalities of Shannon, Kanon, and Beatrice, it is something I liked a lot. The wedding portion, I loved it. Now, it is questionable if I like it more than the witch trial in episode 5. Like, both had a lot of strengths. Like, episode 5 was this brutal fight, trying to scavenge and triumph, which ended in failure initially, but then came Battler's resurrection and finally understanding things, leading to the golden truth moment. Actually, I'd say that both the witch trial in episode 5 and the wedding in episode 6 are a lot more similar than I thought of before, if I'm to include the logic air fight in the closed room that Battler's fight. Initially in episode 5, Beatrice and Battler failed in defending Natsuhi, but afterwards, Battler achieved victory in round 2 with new theories, which leads to an easy victory against Erika. In episode 6, Battler failed in solving the logic error, but afterwards, Beatrice achieved victory after the wedding with her new spin on the problem, which leads to an easy victory against Erika. Episode 6 really is like a inversion of episode 5 a little bit. Episode 5 was a lot of Battler doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Beatrice's sake. And episode 6 was a lot of Beatrice doing the heavy lifting for Balor's sake. It's actually quite a romantic thing when you think of it that way. I'm sure that for those who ship Balor and Beatrice together, this thing that I just described for episode 6 and episode 5 is one of the many core reasons for it. I mean, initially Beatrice and Balor were huge enemies in the earlier parts. I mean, I told you that episode 1 and episode 2 were written by Beatrice, and they felt so vindictive against Balor, because Beatrice, she wrote the first 2 episodes with that hatred for him because of the broken promise. Whereas from episode 3 onwards, it becomes more hopeful for the both of them, through a journey of hardships and understanding each other. A 21st century Pride and Prejudice, really. And then there's Erika. Like, oh my god, was she so good in this. I mean, really, she was at her best in this episode. But I already talked about her at the funeral, so I'm just gonna keep it short here. I think that her master plan for the logic error and trapping Balor, it was my favorite. Like, I liked it more than her plan to trap Nazi in episode 5. In both episodes she gained victory, as, of course, a queen like her deserves, even though in both episodes it was short-lived. She was funny, she was hammy. I mean, my god, it really goes beyond the hamminess that Beatrice showcased in the early parts. I mean, Beatrice was so hammy with her witch laughs, and the way she treated Balor while also being the classy witch she is. And in episode 5, Erika did go for that same route, with some areas where class was entirely gone for her. But in episode 6, fuck it, throw class out the window. Like, Erika is going for the title of Queen of Memes. The sequences with Angie and Federin were great. I mean, I feel like I'm not giving them enough love and attention as I should be, which I'm sure that eventually I will. Like, it shows that Federin is trying to give us words of wisdom when it comes to how we view the story. You know, there is something weird going on with Federin / Hachijo. Like, I had been talking about the one who writes episode 6, and I used Hachijo and Balor, like, interchangeably. Like Hachijo / Federin / Game Master Balor. And it's really making me question why Hachijo is doing the writing for episodes 3 through 6. As I said, episodes 1 and 2, they were written by Beatrice with such vitriol, such hopelessness due to the broken promise. And that Beatrice wanted us all to burn to hell or something because of how Balor never came back in time. Whereas episodes 3 through 6, they are written in a way to tell Beatrice, I understand you, and while it may be too late, I am writing this to make you see that I understand what you wanted, Beatrice, and what you wished for. But why Hachijo? Like, yeah, she's writing this to show us that she understands what Beatrice wanted. I guess one can say that Hachijo is a fan of happy endings, and wrote this possibility of Balor understanding Beatrice, and make Balor learn the truth and such. But why do I get the feeling that there is more to Hachijo than we may realize? Even the end of episode 6 hinted that there being more to this mysterious woman than Angie realizes. Are we gonna go for the twist that Hachijo is secretly Balor's mother, Asumu, who may have faked her death 6 years ago? And she also changed her appearance and voice and all that to make herself unrecognizable to Angie? I mean, in Angie's present time, her death happened 18 years ago, as I said. Balor, he was 18 when the family conference happened. We know that Asumu is technically not Balor's biological mother, but hypothetically, let's just say that Asumu is for this one topic. Asumu gives birth to Balor at the minimum age of 18, and 12 years later, in 1980, she dies. So that makes her 30 at that point. In 1986, she would have been 36. In Angie's present time, 12 years later, she's 48. We're going for a minimum of 48 for her age. Whew, talk about quite a beautiful woman at the age of 48. But on a serious note, why Hachijo? Why her? Out of 6 billion people on Earth, why her? Can I say that she's just another random character that Ryukishi introduced, just so that we have someone in Anji's life explain the story for her? Just so that Anji can grow thanks to her? Is that Hachijo's purpose as a character? Was she introduced for fan service? I mean, we gotta think of it this way. If Hachijo wrote episodes 3 through 6, and like if we are to make like some form of connection between Hachijo and the family, then we would need evidence that would tell us that Hachijo knows stuff that would otherwise be impossible to deduce from episodes 1 through 2. Because if she was just a stranger, then well, she would certainly fabricate some stuff that were actually not there. But, you know, we have Anji. She can testify for some stuff. But, you know, if I'm to think of it this way, if Anji read episodes 3 through 6 up until this point, and she found nothing inconsistent with the story, for example, like, I don't know, the locations of the rooms in the Rokenjima mansion or something like that, that would make Anji think, this is actually pretty consistent. A little bit too consistent, to the point where it would make Anji think, hold on, how come this random stranger would actually know about these places that I know so too? She's being oddly detailed about this sort of stuff, almost as if she knows Rokenjima by hand. Yeah, it's like, if we were to go for that kind of route, Anji over here would definitely testify for that sort of revelation that there is definitely more to Hachijo and such. It's the details of the story. But otherwise, who knows? I guess we should leave it for a different day, because time is running short right now.
So, what you said at a funeral?
Indeed, it was also for you. I said in Orange that no one should be tied to one single role. I like to believe that Erika, in her last moments of fighting Beatrice, while she figured out that there was more than one truth to the problem at that point, she looked the other side. She looked both ways before attacking, and a part of me thinks that maybe even for a split second, she fought back to her past with her ex-boyfriend. Same goes for you too, Nefarious. I have made you to be my villain. You were born because I wanted to challenge myself, my dark thoughts, and eventually triumph. But that means that you are limited to one particular mindset that would be in opposition to mine, even if you would rather think differently.
You have given me the opportunity to think differently before. Allowed me to try and think differently during the Sakutaro stuffed toy debate in Game 5, while still being held by inhibitors that I had back then, to tell me that I can go at things a different way. You did not think of me as an enemy, but how can I be anyone else other than your enemy? I was born to be your enemy, and I cannot be you. You are you. I am me. If I stop being your villain, will I cease to exist? When a character's original purpose no longer is their purpose, what happens then?
Well, those who originally were on the opposition with the protagonist, they can turn a new leaf. It's not—
Let me just stop you right there. I'm not gonna start becoming a part of your posse or anything. I want something more.
Oh, so you want to be a Disney princess?
Cram it!
Maybe I can help you guys with an idea here. It seems that we're having some identity questioning moment going on here. You two are obviously not going to be able to solve it right now, so I think that maybe we should do something first, so that eventually we will all have clear minds and know what needs to be done.
What do you mean?
I have brought you two here exactly as I planned. I was sure that Nefarious was gonna step in, since Noby was not allowed to use orange juice because of the duct tape that I put on him. It was because Noby couldn't fight that you, Nefarious, were forced to go out of your way to think of orange juice, thus leading to you questioning your role more. You what?
The duct tape.
It was you who put it? Brilliant, wasn't it? But never mind that. I have an idea. There are 2 more games left until the end of the story. How about one more duel? You guys think of what you're gonna fight for. Like one huge final debate. One final fight. Maybe with this, things will become more clear and you two will know what needs to be done. One final fight.
What we're gonna fight for.
Okay, I'm totally down for that.
Same.
In which case, I don't think there's much to be said. We're all thinking the same wavelength in regards to what we will be fighting for. Indeed. If there is one thing that is clear in this entire story is that magic doesn't have one universal, absolute interpretation. Everyone has their own. Beatrice, Maria, Virgilia, Delanor, and so on. After all these games, I've seen it time and time again, how magic has brought people together. The connection that was built through all this is what I will be fighting for.
I can sense the allure of such a concept. I have experienced it, even if it's fairly recent. Let's see about going beyond and discover a different perspective.
One can fly far away and achieve anything they so desire, with strong spirit and a nice dose of magic. Freedom of the mind and heart. That is what it's all about. This is my interpretation of magic.